Text 8. Indiscrimination is false knowledge not established in real nature. The next class of vrittis that arises is mistaking one thing for another, as a piece of mother of pearl is taken for a piece of silver. Text 9. Verbal delusion follows from words having no corresponding reality. There is another class of vrittis called vikalp. A word is uttered and we do not wait to consider its meaning. We jump to a conclusion immediately. It is a sign of weakness of the chitta. Now you can understand the theory of restraint. The weaker the man, the less he has of restraint. Examine yourselves always by that test. When you are going to be angry or miserable, reason it out how it is that some news that has come to you is throwing your mind into vrittis. Text 10. Sleep is a vritti which embraces the feeling of voidness. The next class of vrittis is called sleep and dream. When we awake, we know that we have been sleeping. We can only have memory of perception. That which we do not perceive, we never can have memory of. Every reaction is a wave in the lake. Now, if during sleep the mind has no waves, it would have no perceptions, positive or negative, and therefore we would not remember them. The very reason of our remembering sleep is that during sleep there was a certain class of waves in the mind. Memory is another class of vrittis which is called smriti. Text 11. Memory is when the vrittis of perceived subjects do not slip away and through impressions come back to consciousness. Memory can come from direct perception, false knowledge, verbal delusion, and sleep. For instance, you hear a word. That word is like a stone thrown into the lake of the chitta. It causes a ripple, and that ripple rouses a series of ripples. This is memory. So in sleep, when the peculiar kind of ripple called sleep throws the chitta into a ripple of memory, it is called a dream. Dream is another form of the ripple which in the waking state is called memory. Text 12. Their control is by practice and non-attachment. The mind to have non-attachment must be clear, good and rational. Why should we practice? Because each action is like the pulsations quivering over the surface of the lake. The vibration dies out, and what is left? The samskaras, the impressions. When a large number of these impressions are left on the mind, they coalesce and become a habit. It is said habit is second nature. It is the first nature also, and the whole nature of men. Everything that we are is a result of habit. That gives us consolation because if it is only habit, we can make and unmake it at any time. The samskaras are left by these vibrations passing out of our minds, each one of them leaving its result. Our character is the sum total of these marks, and according as some particular wave prevails, one takes that tone. If good prevails, one becomes good. If wickedness, one becomes wicked. If joyfulness, one becomes happy. The only remedy for bad habits is counter habits. All the bad habits that have left their impressions are to be controlled by good habits. Go on doing good, thinking holy thoughts continuously. That is the only way to suppress base impressions. Never say any man is hopeless because he can only represent a character, a bundle of habits which can be checked by new and better ones. Character is repeated habits, and repeated habits alone can reform character. Text 13. Continuous struggle to keep them, the vrittis, perfectly restrained is practice. What is practice? The attempt to restrain the mind in chitta form to prevent its going out into waves. Text 14. It becomes firmly grounded by long constant efforts with great love for the end to be attained. Restraint does not come in one day but by long continued practice. Text 15. That effect which comes to those who have given up their thirst after objects, either seen or heard, and which wills to control the objects is non-attachment. The two motive powers of our actions are what we see ourselves, the experience of others. These two forces throw the mind, the lake, into various waves. Renunciation is the power of battling against these forces and holding the mind in check. Their renunciation is what we want. I am passing through a street and a man comes and takes away my watch. That is my own experience. I see it myself and it immediately throws my chitta into a wave taking the form of anger. Allow not that to come. If you cannot prevent that, you are nothing. If you can, you have vairagya. Again, the experience of the worldly minded teaches us that sense enjoyment are the highest ideal. These are tremendous temptations. To deny them and not allow the mind to come to a wave form with regard to them is renunciation. To control the twofold motive, powers arising from my own experience and from the experience of others, and thus prevent the chitta from being governed by them, is vairagya. These should be controlled by me and not I by them. This sort of mental strength is called renunciation. Vairagya is the only way to freedom. Text 16. That is extreme non-attachment which gives up even the qualities and comes from the knowledge of the real nature of Purusha. It is the highest manifestation of the power of Vairagya when it takes away even our attention or attraction towards the qualities. We have first to understand what the Purusha, the self, is and what the qualities are. According to yoga philosophy, the whole of nature consists of three qualities or forces. One is called tamas, another rajas, and the third sattva. These three qualities manifest themselves in the physical world as darkness or inactivity, attraction or repulsion, and equilibrium of the two. Everything that is in nature, all manifestations, are combinations and recombinations of these three forces. Nature has been divided into various categories by the Shankhyas. The self of man is beyond all these, beyond nature. It is effulgent, pure, and perfect. Whatever of intelligence we see in nature is but the reflection of this self upon nature. Nature itself is insentient. You must remember that the word nature also includes the mind. Mind is in nature. Thought is in nature. From thought down to the grossest form of matter, everything is in nature, the manifestation of nature. This nature has covered the self of man, and when nature takes away the covering, the self appears in its own glory. The non-attachments, as described in aphorism 15, as being control of objects of nature, is the greatest help towards manifestation the self. The next aphorism defines samadhi, perfect concentration, which is the goal of a yogi.